On 17th of October, Chief of Army, Lieutenant General David Morrison, officially launched the 5-volume series, The Centenary History of Australia and the Great War, edited by Professor Geoffrey Gray from UNSW Canberra and published by Oxford University Press.
It gives me much pleasure to represent Oxford University Press today as we officially celebrate and launch the Centenary History of Australia and the Great War, and more specifically herald the publication of the first volume, Australia and the War in the Air, written by Dr. Michael Mulkenton. The Centenary History of Australia and the Great War is and will remain a singular work of excellence in research, scholarship and education. And for me, this is exemplified in Geoffrey Gray's series Forward, which concludes, we offer here a different history for a different era. Michael Mulkenton's contribution, Australia and the War in the Air, has the distinction of kick-starting the series, and it's a very fine way to start. It's a work of deep scholarship and research, and it casts much fresh, new light on a very important subject. So congratulations to Michael, Geoffrey Gray, and all the series authors for the part they have each played in creating what will assuredly become a landmark publication for the generations to come. Thank you.
The Great War is as much the Australian Army's story as it is the story of the Australian people, for between 1914 and 1918, for the first but not the last time, the Army was the expression and the reflection of the people. It is entirely fitting, therefore, that the Army should have had the leading hand in bringing this project to life.
I have seen the first of those, the first of the series, and Michael Mulkenton's book is an outstanding start. It tells the story of Australia's involvement in the air war in the First World War, but in a different way, certainly in a very different way to the official history. It focuses on the operational and strategic aspects of the air war. It's the story of a hard-fought war that took its own price in blood and treasure, but that in its own way contributed to the Allied victories in 1918. It's an outstanding start to the book, and I'm only disappointed that Michael can't be with us today. In his absence, I would like to congratulate him as the Chief of Army, but on your behalf, in being the vanguard of what will be now a 5-volume series under the stewardship and contributing authorship of Professor Geoffrey Gray. And Jeff, in you taking the lead on this, with the support of the Army, but with the support of so many other people, you will leave an extraordinary legacy for a renewal of interest in the First World War. It's with great pleasure that I launch The War in the Air by Michael Mulkenton, but in doing so I also launch the Centenary History of Australia in the Great War, and congratulate all of those, including of course Oxford University Press, who have contributed to it. Well done to you all, and thank you for asking me to be part of the launch.
Dr. Michael Mulkenton, UNSW alumnus and author of first volume of the series, Australia and the War in the Air, could not attend the launch. Emeritus Professor Peter Dennis delivered Michael's address on his behalf.
The Centenary series provided me the opportunity to examine it from a rather different set of perspectives, including policy, political organisation, leadership, training and logistics. These are all aspects of the context that defines and gives meaning to Australia's involvement in wars, but which are, as Professor Gray himself has noted, often overlooked by Australian military historians. I also have a conviction that good commemoration involves more than emotion and sentiment. It needs to start and end with good history. That is, history that is rigorously researched and written, is never definitive, for definitive implies intellectual stagnation, and is honest, even when the truth is unpalatable or challenging. I'm grateful to Professor Geoffrey Gray for bringing me on board this project. It has been a privilege for someone at the early stages of his career to work with such an eminent scholar. Perhaps that I delivered the manuscript on time will atone for the fact that during my PhD candidature, I broke all three of the vows he makes his graduate students take, those of poverty, chastity and obedience. Besides Jeff, I've also benefited from the expertise of my fellow authors in the Centenary Project Group. These include Professors Peter Stanley and Peter Dennis, and Doctors Jean Bou, John Connor, Robert Stevenson and Peter Yule. Working with these men has been a formative professional experience, and I eagerly look forward to the publication of their volumes. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the enormous support I've had from my family. I regret and will always be disappointed that I could not be here today.
My final thanks go to the team of historians who made a years-long commitment to someone else's grand idea, and without whom that idea would have no substance. The group, largely but not exclusively members of UNSW Canberra, reflects scholarly military history in Australia, a mix of older, established historians and younger ones or those at earlier points in their careers. All are recognised and published historians in their own right, and the authority and talent that they bring to this series is another measure of the outstanding quality of the final series, and for which they are overwhelmingly responsible. Because this is a series, there will be a series of these sorts of events over the next 18 months, culminating in the lead up to Anzac Day 2016, when the final volume in the series will reach its concluding point. I hope very much to see many of you there along the way to share the outputs and the outcomes of that process as they come out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.